You order?
Call meeting to order. It is 6:06, Monday, March 18th, 2024. It's a work session of the city council now then. Call roll please.
Mayor Dion,
President.
Councilmember Rainville has notified us that she won't be here. Councilmember Elders,
Here.
Councilmember Bryant, here. Councilmember Flato.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Natalie Johnson.
Here.
We have your property manager Genevieve here with us tonight. And your city administrator is also present. All those statements.
I have a couple of things, something to the agenda. One, like to wrap this up by 8 o'clock. Seems like we start going 3 hours and start pushing 9 o'clock and starting at 6. We wear out and then make best decisions. It's 2 hours. What's agreeable to that? And then secondly, I would like to add housing update. Just sent this to you, I just got this afternoon from the league. This is, right now it's once a month, but there's about 40 to 60 of us elected and appointed officials around the state. League of Minnesota cities, metro cities, small cities, coalition of greater Minnesota cities. Now they're pushing to include the townships in this legislation. It's not 1,500 townships, so it's under the end of the coalition. And this is elected and appointed officials from across the state working to minimize the damage on the various housing bills in going through. So I just sent you a summary from our meeting last week. Guessing that as the bill get closer to vote, so we say even more often or right now. And so I would like to address that as our opening item, because there's still a good possibility that giving pressure to our legislators will have some positive. I'd like to add that to the agenda. Because I don't know one. I don't know that. Yeah. All right, so with that amendment to the agenda, I'd like to they're going to approve the agenda as amended. Second. Got a motion and a second. Any other comments? So you hear now, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, so what I sent you just now is the current House of Representatives, House File number 4009, and the current Senate File 1370. These are some of the bills that are some of the iteration of the bills that are going through. There's about 5 bills right now. The assumption is what they don't get through in a standalone bill will be pushed into an omnibus bill late. Our legislator, our senator, Eric Searle is one of the authors on these bills. And the league has asked that those there, Sarah was our senator, and there's another representative in the Senate that asked to try. That we contact Eric Searle and let him know our opinion on it. What he deems okay as local control and what he's
Swear he was here. I missed the first couple of minutes. We asked him specifically about this. Where is he actually standing on this thing?
He's often, which tells you what the actions. His comment was, he can't accept certain aspects of our resistance, like architectural, aesthetic issues. Certain things that he just doesn't think are right with affordable housing. His comment, if you got his recent newsletter, today, The claim that the legislators made is we are over 100,000 affordable houses short in the state. And right now, if we look at the universal basic income that they're proposing in our state legislature, they're proposing this for units of families of 8. So let's just figure that a housing unit might be 4 people. They're saying right now there's 400,000 people that can afford this. 80% of our population is related to programs. The problem is what they're calling affordable home. Say, reasonable is $300,000. In his newsletter, he has an ad for getting into the building trades, and you can make 6 figures by the time you're 21. So right now, a lot of the affordable housing problem has to do with labor costs. They're claiming it's the excessive regulation being put on the cities. And so the inconsistency there saying you can make everybody in the building trades can make it 6 figures. And that's not somehow not addressing the important issue. So I would like to just run through a couple of the bullet points that we sent out. Because what we are in the metro area, the Greater Minnesota Coalition has had some success in pushing back for lack of infrastructure, so they have eliminated some of the requirements for cities under 10,000. Right now in the metro area, there's 52 cities that are 5,000 less. I don't know how many are 10,000 less. But they decided if in the metro area, that exclusion doesn't apply.
So even though we're under 5,000, it still doesn't apply to this.
Some of the limitations are the class of your city. So all of this applies to cities in the first class, which are the largest cities. Our size of under 5,000 puts us as a city fourth class. So the 6-plex and 10-plex requirements wouldn't apply to us, but the multifamily duplex would apply. And what they're saying is, the question that we're trying to force them to say, what is a lot size? You can put multifamily housing in a duplex. Single family housing, but duplex, or restrict. They won't define what a lot size is. Currently, it's 25 square feet. Now, here you can have 5 acres, you can have 6,400 square feet built in the home. Their lot size that they're using for this regulation is 25 square feet. 18 and 14 in the city. These are pretty small lots.
2,500 square feet is not that. Exactly. A quarter acre or half acre is not.
Who knows? Plus, they're talking multiple homes.
25 square feet, no, that one. A pole barn is, that's a,
Yeah. Whole barn is,
Yeah.
6,000.
yeah, my pole barn is bigger than this.
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous. So what we're trying to convince them is infrastructure wise, nobody can handle this. You could literally go to a neighborhood in Minneapolis, rip down the ancient homes and put up 6 houses without any requirement for water supply or sewage.
Acres for
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous numbers. And so we're trying to tell them out here, we've determined the minimum lot size we can tolerate with septic system and backup as well, with proper separation is 1.25 acres.
Anyway, I mean, okay, so I don't know anything about this, I've read this and stuff, but we've already allowed, like, we allow as a city to have connected apartments for in-laws for, you know, mother-in-law apartment. Can those come into play here, anything like that,
Well, you'll find when you read through the bill, not only can they can. So accessory units, what they're calling accessory dwelling units, either attached or detached, you also can't deny affordable housing in commercial areas. They're talking about structures that are 150 feet tall. Talking about structures that can be as taller than the nearest structure within a quarter mile. If you're in a commercial area, you're gonna want.
Well, I understand that, but we also have to realize we are a septic and well city. So the developer that's gonna try to put in a large scale apartment or large scale building is gonna put in a septic system. To support that, which
That's
is,
it. I'm not real worried about it. It's the last definition of what's on lot.
yeah,
We don't get to restrict that. One of the key components you'll see here is, you no longer have to have a public hearing, in fact, the council is no longer allowed to deny. These are allowable right restrictions they're putting in. And if a large structure, one of the examples they gave, somebody had put up $4,800 into their solar system. And next to them, somebody's building a building that blocks the sun from the solar system. They're not allowed to challenge it. There's no recourse for residents to challenge the development that goes in next to them. For the council to restrict them, and it's given by right, they're taking the public hearing. They're also putting in the building permits, a 60-day rule. Really, with a 60-day rule on land use. So if somebody comes in and applies for a interuse permit, you have 60 days from that application to act on it. And if you don't, you have to get an extension, which you can do twice. So you can have up to 180 days to process that. What they're saying is if somebody comes in and applies for a building permit, you have 60 days to act on that building permit. And if you don't, it's automatically approved as the no recourse beyond 60 days. Now, one of the things we tried to get through last week is one of the bills is considering an additional 60 days on it. But you have a sophisticated planner. We've got $3 million houses out here, planners may not even have days. And so they could submit it, you're not done with it, they get it as submitted, whether it meets city regulations or not.
so what are the bills that is, what is Senate File 3964?
That one I don't have. I've got Senate File 1370, House File 4009.
Senate File 1370 and House File
4009. And I just sent that to you, so you'll have it.
What was the one you were questioning?
So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So Kinsey, my daughter, was down at the Capitol, last week and met with, Senate Casario. And, I told her afterwards, like, did you talk about housing? So she didn't, so her class, actually looked at Senate File 3964, which I thought was what this was. So this one is like, I think 3964 is removing the authority from city council and planning and zoning. And tying these houses, something, it's one, I don't remember which, so anyway, that class did a review of the bill, and then a class discussion, and then they drafted a letter opposing this that I have, and we could easily figure out how to get that on the right website, so that people are aware of this. It's a one-click. Click this link, fill your name on, send it to your senator, so that we can do a bit more of a grassroots effort on how do we oppose this, so we can start doing some. Put it on the Facebook sites, but we have to have some, I gotta make sure we got the right bills, and we're talking to the right language.
So here's what I'm asking, when it comes to our city, is there any protection as far as when we have certain ordinances, which are wrong, so I'm sure we do, but do we have ordinance already in place that could help us mitigate something like this if it came through? For instance, do we have something on apartment buildings and things like that, because could we as a city then say, we can't do that, but we can do the mother-in-law home, or we can maybe split properties? I mean, is there some protection for us in any way with any of these bills that as a city we could come around it and get around it in a different way?
So the key issue here is what's allowed to be controlled locally. The term used in the legislation is preemptive mandate, which the government regulations that they're mandating no supporting financial aspect to it. We would refer to it as local control. The city of Rochester was under call. The comment was made by the League of Minnesota City that vehemently opposed everything in these bills, all 5 of them. The current bill, again, these are the current iteration. Some of these will be combined. 2 or more already. Missing middle housing is one of the key ones. And that was combined with the people over parking. Because they wanted to eliminate all that. They compromised by saying you now have to have 1 parking spot per household. You get a duplex home that have 2 parking spots. And it's up to the developer or builder to decide if they want. So Rochester said, we are not being opposed. We are being opposed to somebody at the Capitol telling us how to run our city. We're already doing most of this. But they're telling us we have to and more. And so it's not that we oppose everything. So could we do some things to say we're cooperating? Yes, we could. But they're saying you will do all of these things and we'll do them in our fashion. So one of the consequences, we talked about insufficient infrastructure. Legislation currently going through allows developers to build 6 to 10 types of middle housing. Duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, 5, 6 townhouse stacked flats, 4 apartments, cottage units. We've had people out here suggest cottage units, senior developers. And you have to come up with some type of community septic as well to do that, which somebody has to run, somebody has to. The consequences is what does that do to your infrastructure? What does that do to your groundwater? What does that do to your first responders? How do we handle the influx that multiple family dwellings are going to get? The other issues, as I talked about, limited community input, the legislation requires cities to adopt an administrative review process that prohibits public hearings in most cases unless the proposed development impacts the lot located in a historic district. This required review process needs leaders to report to make decisions about redevelopments without hearing any of impacted residents. So residents will no longer be able to voice their concerns regarding new developments that affect their property in the neighborhood during public comment periods, the city council holding public hearings. So, Jason, to your point, these are things I've asked the league if we can put on a website and say it's up to the council. They're saying these are our talking points. They're free to share that on the website if you as a council decide to do that. We as a council decide we will allow that, not telling the council for somebody to put on Facebook. The key is make sure that we put a phone number in there, our contact information for people in the legislature. So in the email that I sent you, it's how do you find your legislator? How do you find legislators who are operating the bills? And obviously, if you want to see anybody else who might be voting, it's getting heavy support from the largest cities in the state. The problem we have this year, we've been fighting the iteration of these bills for a couple of years successfully. They haven't made it to a vote. This year, they have put together a massive coalition. They have Republicans, Democrats, the Sierra Club, unions, builders, it's amazing people they put together, and so the idea that you used to hope that one of those groups would be disaffected by it and not go with it, but right now, it's running through the system. Cities would have to allow smaller homes to be built in single-family lots regardless of lot size. They would also allow 10 to 20 units on lots as small as 2,500 square feet, and allow multi-family developments to be constructed in any commercial area. Dwellings can then be as tall as a commercial residential structure in a quarter-mile radius, up to 150 feet in height. Local height restriction in Sarver is higher. Our local height restriction right now is 35 feet.
So we have to tell the residents, based that this came through, that we don't have any choice and we don't have the power as a council to be able to do this stuff.
Yes, so the only way would be left is, what is the developers gonna do, knowing that there's not sewer and water running through these? It still is gonna require two wells or a well and two septic systems, and there's still a model of separation between the floodplain and what we actually build, which you can, that's gonna. So there's still some things, but I think the biggest thing is, it's like right now, our. The way it's set up today is a 5 acre average, 2.5 acre minimum. And that can significantly change down to X. We don't know what X is, but if you start saying somebody's got 40, 60, 80 acres, and now instead of putting, you got all 100 raises bigger, you got 20 permits, and now all of a sudden you get 100 permits, that drastically changes somebody's enticement to develop the land and potentially change the landscape of Malvern and go away from, I would say, what we have today to more of a St. Michael suburb, whatever. So, I mean, that, for now, then, it's a fairly significant, could be a significant change for St. Michael, some of these other cities that are doing a lot of this stuff, and it may not be as big a change other than allowing, or some of the multi-flex buildings that the city has sewer and water and is actively developing today. It may not be a large impact for a rural area like this in some of these townships, then I don't know. So maybe in our area, we can change what we see here on a daily basis.
Well, what we farm, this is. The other problem is we don't know what their lot size is. And so the arguments have been on infrastructure. If you have, yeah, you decide these 100-year-old homes are not worth rebuilding. And my lot down is 40 feet wide. You can put in multiplex, whatever iteration, so you put a 6-plex on it. And multiple people do that, start breaking down and say, the infrastructure isn't there, water and sewer and parking. Again, if you have a 6-plex, and you only have to have one parking spot per, most people have more than one problem. And already in Minneapolis, when it snows, you don't have a place to park and move snow. So we're saying snow removal, infrastructure. You need to do sewer repair. First responders, I think fire trucks, everybody's on the street. And the typical response is, that's not our problem. We just make the laws. So as we're arguing for those of us that we're in, the worst part, if we're in a metro area, we have the infrastructure here and so we don't have it. It said you can't have wells next to septics. You have to understand, our water tables and our impact on the septic system being on top of the well. And again, it's like you're talking to a wall. People are saying, that's not our problem. So you don't understand. So we have determined safely, you have to have at least an 8.4, which 2 septics in the well. In our comp plan, watershed previously, in order to keep the separation and have 2 sites in a well, determination, you really can't go.
They went in two different pond systems and a well. Here, and a pavement.
Or-
Yeah, I mean, that, they're saying that's the minimum. If you're pushing it at that. point. But let's say they decide you could do that outside the metro area. First of all, we have to get them to accept us as the infrastructure is outside the area. We don't know what they'll do. They haven't shown any sensitivity to what that will do. We're trying to appeal to DNR, to EPA, and saying this is to the health department. And I want to be careful here, but all of those agencies that answer to the governor have not been responsive to my request for help us out. We know this isn't helpful. You know, you can't put a septic in top. And so, because we don't know what they're going to determine the lot size is. And this, again, this one here. Lot size minimum. So it forces administrative approvals on projects to meet standards with public input in the approval process. Then this minimum lot size requires no greater than 2,500 square feet in first class cities. 4,000 square feet, all other cities, except those outside the metro area with less than 10,000. We're not outside, so they say our minimum lot size is 4,000. Again, the full vote probably won't. Again, I mean, on 5 acres, you can have 65. That sets, it requires all cities to accept accessory dwelling units on all residential lots regardless of the size of our property, which is subdivide their lots by right. Again, the city doesn't have anything, when I go out and start subdividing the property, we no longer have say. It sets a base level of density allowed on any residential lot regardless of size, 2 units statewide, 4 units minimum, city with the first class. So again, you have this information, if the council agrees, they can put it. It also prohibits off-street parking from being required close to a major transit stop. Prohibits off-street parking, the minimum requirements in one spot. So if you're in a city and you're near a transit stop, you're gonna have to.
So can we, Mr. Mayor, can we ratchet it up one level and have this information there, like draft, a simple note to our senator, Cyril, and the body is understanding of everyone. Either you still vote to the full vote, you actually would vote for or not vote for. And say, here, use this as a city, we're opposed to these 5 bills, for these reasons. And has, thank you, concerned citizen, and it goes right to their email, because if we don't make it simple, no one's gonna do it.
Yeah.
So what we've been asked to do by the league is to, what I'm gonna ask the council to approve tonight. So one is that we get this information on our website.
Absolutely.
That if people want to take what's on our website and put it on Facebook. Control that, but I think we can. And they're asking us to pass a resolution. I was not able to download it prior to the meeting here. It's got a look up who represents your city. On the information I sent you tonight. And they're asking for us to pass the following resolution or articulation of. I'm gonna read it to you real quickly, because I want you to know. Resolution supporting retention of city zoning authority. Whereas decisions about local zoning and land use that best fit the community needs. That's left to city residents and officials, whereas cities use zoning and land use regulations to balance property usage, plan for community growth, dedicate space and capacity for public infrastructure to support development of roads, parks, trails, transportation, sewer, stormwater, and water. Mitigate flooding and erosion and preserve natural resources, among others. The other thing that this doesn't take into consideration is impervious surface. So our water flow will be impacted in the water control. Whereas the Minnesota State Legislature is attempting to address housing availability and affordability challenges, considering measures to preempt city authority to regulate land use and zoning and assign authority to state government. Whereas passage of those measures would inadequately address housing availability, affordability challenges. To that point, we want to make sure it's understood that these proposals are not making housing more affordable.
No,
And that's the whole argument. We don't have anything about this is not doing anything to address affordability. Whereas a rigid framework for land use and zoning mandated by the state makes little sense. And cities require flexibility to address their own unique circumstances not understood by the state. Whereas provisions of the proposed state measures would place a fiscal burden for infrastructure costs on new residential development on the shoulders of existing homeowners and renters in our local communities. Whereas building multiple housing units in a single residential lot with inadequate spacing has allowed the proposed zoning preemption measures that result in service delivery problems, limiting emergency medical services and fire department access to city neighborhoods. Whereas provisions would also silence local residents from their concerns regarding proposed developments during the public comment period of the city council and other public meetings. And whereas cities across the state have already put in years of work to address zoning issues and continue to do so to help with community engagement. Now therefore be resolved on the city council of the city of Malvern, Minnesota. That the city of Malvern opposes state proposals that seek to preempt local zoning and land use decisions making when it comes to residential development. Supports constructive policy alternatives that people are talking about. To incentivize and bolster city efforts for addressing housing challenges. And advocates for city-state partnerships to consider reforms that are proven to address housing availability and affordability. That ensure efforts can be locally led and shaped. That's the resolution I'm going to ask that we approve tonight, and then what they would like us to do is send this, they're collecting these from cities around the state. As lobbyists for metro cities, small cities, coalition of bigger Minnesota cities, and league. Each of these individual lobbyists are bringing these resolutions saying there are people around the state that want local control. The city all that. So they're trying to build an invention before the vote comes out. So I will make a motion to approve that resolution. Any other discussion?
Basically, what the word is, some of the other changes.
Yeah, they said you're free to change it, to personalize it. You don't personalize it, I would say proceed on in the same way, but I don't see what we would change. And I'm going to guess that most legislators are going to include them all in the No, maybe I'm going to say, if you got your mind made up. We're trying to find somebody to break ranks. Because in the Senate, there's only one vote difference, everybody votes party lines. If you can flip one person, then it doesn't pass.
Mayor, did you have a house spot legislative matters last week? Councilmember Alders, your Senate file 3964 you're asking about. Its companion bill is the 4009. So they're kind of the same. It's all on the city residential density and association requirements.
And there's a bill out there, Elkins bill, which I don't have in front of me. It still repeals a council exemption for the city. We, so back in 2017, we were able to get legislation passed that exempted the city of Malvern from that council's direct control. So instead of that council telling us there's a portion of our city that they have locked down to 10-acre minimums, then any development on there has to be a cluster development that allotted for future sewer. sort of type of law of farmland, people couldn't sell us. The Med Council directed us how to work elements like how cities and metro area have been fighting it out underneath that control for decades. We found a way forward in legislation. And so since 2017, we have not been in direct control of that council. They realized that for 3 years, they've been trying to get us back on it, and appeal an exemption. What is it, 2 years in a row, but how my vote is, we don't have to do that anymore. We're not sure what that would mean to us, those areas that the Met Council had locked up before, we relocked. Even housing requirements in those areas now. There's that lawsuit. But being out there concerned, they just want us back in the fold like every other metro city. So, because we're in the metro area and we're resident, it council rules apply to us, they don't to our neighbors. Anybody north of St. Francis, west of us,
And represented.
they're impacted, there's 11 county metro area. But the Met Council only impacts the 7 area. So 4 counties around the metro area. They're impacted that. So it's one of those things that we're trying to avoid as well. That being said, the only bills, current iteration of bills essentially were these 2. And 4009 currently does not have the elephants repealed on. Eric Lucero, Senator Lucero was able to get it out of the Senate bill. Called it back, got taken out of the Senate bill, it's the only percentage really concerned about it. Now we made that under that control. Unfortunately, Representative Elkins is, if I'm understanding right, he used to be part of that council. And in years past, I've asked them to drop that provision. Amongst other provisions, we asked them to make with that. They have not dropped that provision, the bill just didn't pass. So the 2 things we're asking right now is the bills as they're currently passing through would be opposed. And the talking points are, we have a website, bills as they currently stand, we have a website. The contact information for following the current iteration of the bills will be on the website. And some other pertinent information that we provided that I didn't print out of their bills will be on the email I sent to you recently and will be on our website. The other caution that they have is as we continue to update information as we get more, if these bills don't survive in a standalone basis, the portions of them are likely to end up in the omnibus bill where everyone gets crammed into last minute. So there is no rest until the legislature goes for. This is, this is probably what we're talking about fire chief today. And this is probably in his career, this is the most impactful legislation we've seen in our cities. This is huge, and there is little evidence that they understand, people in the legislature understand the consequences of what they do. Cities in the metro area and cities in greater Minnesota. The one concession greater Minnesota got was the square footage for cities under 10,000. Which also tends to put the coalition of greater Minnesota cities at odds with those in the metro area. Because now you're saying, hey, we got out money, you guys don't know. We're trying to keep these coalitions together so they all work together. The one consideration that people thought would help us last time was by bringing the townships into it. And now you have 1,500 more municipalities, 15 or 17, whatever it is for townships, that now are going to be concerned that it's just not cities, not only cities. Because it's, so, I just, even concession.
5 and 2.5, so we have one area that's 2.5 here. We said the whole city is 2.5 acres, that changes the development, and it's keeping substantially right for actually that one's 2, is it 2? So that's double the number of lots on. Parcel, and it's a.
So you have 8 on the board.
And if they say 4,000 square feet, again. These meetings are pretty lively. The people are saying, do they not understand 4,000 square feet is not attainable?
So, so that isn't gonna happen, but even if we say it changes to 2.5. A 40-acre parcel, that's 16 homes instead of 8, which makes it. I'm not saying that's bad, but that makes it a lot more.
It changes their infrastructure.
It changes that, but it changes like how many developers are just gonna drive here.
They think our last 2 big developments, and adding homes, like that. That was. Yeah, the one of 66. Like. Right now, those have. He's got 9 houses in there.
Mhm.
By this standard, he could have 18 to 5. That's it. And there again, the infrastructure and public safety aspect of it, right now. What does that do to a firehouse? And if they don't have to have off-street parking. That really set up on-street parking.
Well, and it also goes into that, like you said, if someone's having solar, they can't even complain that. We have calls right now that come in from neighbors that say this happens or this happens, Scott deals with that, and. You can somehow come to a consensus sometimes and work it out, but if you've got a lot. It's, what are you gonna say? I'm sorry, nothing I can do about it.
Okay, we burned up about an hour, we vote on this baby?
Yes.
Hold on.
Alright? So. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would recommend that you, take a look through those, highlight any other things, which, like I said, I was just starting to put in before this meeting started. This is what the league has highlighted, because that's concerning to most cities. If you see other things that, you think are important. Because we're not voting on it as a city directive, if you someone else want to bring to attention, we can email that to the whole council. But this is one where we want to get as much pressure, and particularly because our senator is one of the key officers. As much pressure as we can, so we don't see there, the comment that Senator Lucero said, when we're talking about some of the specific issues here, is I firmly believe in local control, but I can't endorse aesthetics, so we can't say anything about aesthetics, what type of siding, literally, we're just gonna have single black homes. Next to it, $3 million. You can't require garages, install garage, minimum square footage on houses, those types of things. Because I just can't support some of those things because we really have to have more housing and we can't have HOAs. So if there's a development that goes in and the people living there want to say, we want to keep our aesthetics up. We no longer, they're trying to eliminate housing associations. When I asked him, I don't care what you think, because I think realtor is one of his titles. You need to care about what your constituents, do. You need to be asking us and supporting us, whether you like it or not. You need to be supporting the people in your Senate district, which goes all the way down to Hanover, and it's a fairly big district. And the people he represents don't want this, but he's saying, here's what I think is best. So we need to make sure people in Senate District 30 let him know what they think is best. That being said, you have what I have currently.
Did you send that directly to me or did you send it to staff?
Sent it.
I did. Okay,
I just sent it just now.
okay.
If you didn't get it, let me know. I also sent it to, there's a coalition of mayors in Ellicott County. They aren't in Senate District 30, so they have different legislators. So I forwarded that to them as well, so they can, they haven't been part of the league coalition. So we're trying to get as much coverage as we can. You know, other people, you know, other council members or elected or appointed officials, or you have anybody that you know that have a different legislator, please get those letters to us. The resolution. As approved.
For some reason too, can you guys just kind of speak up because it is not, the owl is not. found.
Okay,
So I just have the board view, kind of the main, and it's just like right at the table. So,
gonna move that closer to us.
yeah.
It's not tracking.
No, it's not tracking and we found the setting, but I can't.
Setting the plan from that.
Is it doing anything?
Yes,
Is it catching my council better?
yeah, when they said that, okay. So if we're just talking like this, is it fine?
No.
It's, so we have to talk like this, that's what you're saying, how, is it following me now?
It's not following.
It's not following
It's just
at all.
on the corner view, it won't.
Directly.
So that's okay though, right?
Well, you know, as long as Jason is gone, do you guys mind if I pause it and start it again and just learn
That's
the
fine.
first part?
So I'm sending this for you too, and copy Cindy Nash